This is David Rosen, and David is one of the co-owners out here at Adirondack Guide Boat. And we're actually just outside of Burlington, Vermont at their shop in a town called Ferrisburg, Vermont. And the scenery around here with the mountains, it's just drop dead gorgeous. Now, the hardware on your boat is absolutely gorgeous. Are you making it yourself, or do you farm that out?
Well, we have a jeweler in the Adirondacks who has this as a side business. He inherited molds through his family, and he makes them for us. And we also make other brass fittings for our boats ourselves.
Now, there are several jigs involved in bending this brass.
Yep.
You also want to kind of shape the brass and all that. But I'm really curious as to how the seats go in an almost finished boat. And I know one of your employees has something set up for it.
Right, we have a boat over here. It's just done now. You want to go see it?
I sure would.
Let's go.
Thank you.
John, what we're doing here is the final assembly on one of our wooden boats. Giles is putting the duck boards in the boat.
Now, this is actually where your feet rest in the bottom of the boat, correct? And I see that we have some cleat stock over here. What's that for?
That's these are the cleats for holding the seat against the ribs. And here's the seat, and the backrest will go over here.
Take a look at how these are fastened into these ribs. These are brass screws. There's a little tip here. Whenever you're driving a brass screw into wood, you might want to lubricate it with something, right?
You put a little bit of wax on it just to make sure you don't crack the rib at this stage of the construction.
Very good. Now, what size is this boat?
This is a little smaller than the one you're building. This is a 13-footer.
And how many man-hours go into actually building a boat? Because you not only provide kits, but you also build these things.
Right. The parts typically take about 100 hours, and then the assembly is about 200 hours.
What are we looking at price-wise for a boat like this?
In the $13,000 price range.
Okay. Now, you are making a much more affordable version of the boat.
Right behind us.
Same shape, the same weight in the water, and that's critical for the type ride that you want to expect with one of these boats. But take me through that process. How do you lay one of these boats up?
Well, the way we came up with our mold was we took one of our wooden boats and cast the mold from it, and then we lay fiberglass cloth in the mold first rather than the usual way of gel coating.
What's the weight of the cloth?
The weight of the cloth is 6 ounce.
Okay.
And then we build it up with 2 layers of Kevlar and another layer of 6 ounce cloth.
So you're not using gel coat here?
No, the gel coat is about 5 extra pounds of weight in the boat that we'd rather not put there. So the cloth goes in first, and then we take tinted resin and roll it through the cloth.
Okay. Now, take a look at the ends of the boat. It's very sharp. How could you get this to release from a mold?
We split the end of the mold, and there are wing nuts holding it tight. So when the boat's ready to come out, we loosen the wing nuts, drive a wedge down so the mold opens up, and then lift the boat out.
Now, you still trim these composite boats out with some beautiful accent pieces of wood, and you've got the brass hardware and all of that. But how much are we looking at for a composite boat?
Typically in the $4,000 range.
Awesome. David, thank you so much
for
the look around. But, hey, what we've got to do is we've got to get back to Florida, and we're going to be there right after this commercial break.
ShipShape TV will be right back.
Well, here we are back at Blowing Rock Marina. We again have the privilege of having Steve Callback on the program. Steve, you have a wonderful shop up in Vermont. I was very impressed.
Well, thanks very much.
And take a look at our Adirondack guide boat. You can see that we have progressed quite nicely here at the marina. Now, where we left off is we had our bottom board and all of our ribs attached to our vessel, and we kind of picked that up. We put it on top of our strong back, and we screwed it into place. We then needed to use some spreaders in order to make sure that our ribs were at the precise kind of degree and angle and all that. And again, this is a kit, and it comes with all of the information and all of the measurements that you're going to need. Okay, it's a book. It's very, very cool. But basically, what we had to do, Steve, is after all of the spreaders got kind of clamped and screwed into place, is we had to start fairing the ribs. And what tool did we use here?
Oh, that's a Nicholson cabinet brass, John, and we used that to kind of knock off the corners of the ribs as they made their way from one end of the boat to the other.
Now, Steve gave me a really cool kind of tip when you're using one of these rafts. What you want to do is you want to start right at zero. You want to start right at the center of the boat, and you're going to have to first kind of use a pencil and put down a pencil line. And what you want to do is you want to follow a certain rake of the boat, a certain degree, and it's going to get progressively steeper as you're going to the bow. You can see how it kind of narrows as we're going to the stem right there. Basically, what you want to do with this raft is you want to put the wood handle right on the one rib, and you want to work the material. You want to sand it down. You want to remove that wood. And once you get to that pencil line, you have your angle. Now, what did we do after that?
After that was done, we put our first strip on. We put it on dry, and that first strip that we put on, giving us a visual indicator as to whether we had actually lined the ribs up in the way that they should be.
And the second one, you had me kind of dry fit it into, going right to our stem. And I used an old world boat building technique called spiling. And I kind of just took the Western red cedar and I just used a little sanding block and I just kind of sanded it off. I also back sanded it, got it to fit nice, drilled a hole, countersunk that hole, and we put a screw in place. Now, we wanted to kind of just get a nice fit there first. Once that happened, we removed the screw and we mixed up some epoxy.
That's right.
And with your kit, you supply a special type of filler that is color matched to the Western red cedar. And you took an applicator and you came back and you put a good amount of material on that first strip. And you kind of were telling me how the second strip is going to lock into that first one. How is it doing that?
Well, each strip has a very slight bevel, and the bevel actually captures the next strip as you put it on top of it.
So it's kind of like tongue of groove, but this is a little bit different.
A little bit different, less complicated, actually.
Now we have to work one rib at a time. We have to drill our hole. We have to countersink it. We have to put in that screw. You have a really neat technique that I like. You use your left hand and you grab both those strips, or the top strip, and you pull it down real tight. You grab the drill, you drill the hole, you grab the screw, you put it in, you go ahead and you drive it in. And as he was working his way down the boat, I was following him with a plastic applicator, and I was taking up any excess epoxy. And that's key. If epoxy cures and it gets too hard, it becomes a bear to sand. So try to really, take the epoxy off, but don't put them in the holes where the brass screws are. That's a no-no.
That's right.
Okay? But we worked our way all the way down to the other end of the boat, and we went ahead and we had to cut that. And you used what was the cutter that you used in order to kind of get it to fit in there?
It's a cutter handy in like Sears stores and Home Depot. It's called a guillotine kind of cutter. It snaps it off real easily.
Right. Now again, you're going to have to sand this a little bit. You're also going to have to put some epoxy on the end as well as on the back side, and go ahead and attach it to the hull. Now what you're looking at here is you're looking at about 30 strips already attached to our Adirondack guide boat, and there's a total of 50, and we don't want to really bore people with putting on every strip. But what I would really like to do is I would like to move ahead in time, and I'd like to be out on the water with one of your boats, Steve, and I would like to have you give us a rowing lesson. Will you do it?
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Well, what we've done is we've gone ahead and we've loaded up the Adirondack guide boat into the back of our pickup truck, and we brought it up the intercoastal waterway a little bit. But real quick, show us the rowing motion in this particular craft.
Okay, I'm going to have one hand in front of the other and one a little bit advanced. And you can see one hand is down low and one's a little high. And that helps keeps me from banging my knuckles together.
Very, very cool. Well, hey, we got a couple of people that we need to thank who helped make today's show possible. Naturally, Steve Callback, as well as your partner up in Vermont, David. Richard from My Epoxy. John Kriska helped us out from Blowing Rocks Marina. West Marine was very instrumental. But you know what? The most important one that we need to thank here, like always, is you. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us for the last 30 minutes right here on the beautiful water's edge. But we've got to go. Sun's going down. But how about this? How about until we see each other again? Can you do yourself a favor? Can you get out there and make your boat shipshape? Of course you can. I'm John Graviscus. We'll see you next time. Steve, hit it. Let's go. I like when you're rowing.
Closed captioning for ShipShape TV has been made possible by ShipShapeTV.com, the official website of boaters everywhere.
Beautiful boat. Absolutely.